So obviously, with all this music around you, were there any clubbing experiences as well? Because obviously, you could have been going out to see bands play and things like that. You mentioned obviously seeing Pendulum. Was there any raves or anything like that? Because for me, like Scotland is definitely one of the meccas of rave music. You know, if you think back at the roots of what came out of there, you've got, you know, artists like N-Trance, Scott Brown, Tom Wilson, and then you've got raves like Fantasia and Resurrection, which is obviously the early 90s and stuff. What were your kind of early rave experiences in Scotland, and do you still do any of them now?
Yeah, so I think when I was a teenager, like I was more into metal, and I was more into kind of bands and stuff. So I did see them, but you know, like I said, when I for my 18th birthday, we went to like a club in Edinburgh called the Bongo Club, which is like the only club in Edinburgh now that does like underground kind of music. And they had like a dubstep night on a Wednesday called Jungle Dub, and it was dubstep, and then went in a jungle at the end, kind of thing. So you know, we used to go to that quite regularly. But in terms of like actual raves and stuff, I mean, Tea in the Park was like the festival in Scotland, and they had the Slam tent, which was like run by Slam, who are
That as in DJ Slam.
as in yeah, DJ Slams, yeah. So
Oh right, okay, yeah. I'm a big fan of DJ Slam. He was on the well, he had tracks on like the Bonkers hardcore albums, isn't he, on Sharky and stuff. So yeah, big fan of him.
yeah.
Sorry, go on. So he was running tents at Tea in the Park, was he?
Yeah, so it's actually two guys Slam, but yeah, so it's basically they ran the Slam tent at Tea in the Park, which was like Tea in the Park was mostly bands, but they always had the Slam tent, which did like like house music and loads of dance music, but it was mostly kind of house and techno. I mean, for the very first Tea in the Park, which my dad actually went to, in '99 they had, '97 they had Daft Punk headline the Slam tent at like last. So you know, they always had big names. I've seen Green Velvet there quite a few times, and like, yeah, just loads of people. Like most of the time when I was at the Slam tent, I didn't know who I was seeing, like, to be honest. But it was that was always like a big part of the rave scene in Scotland. But as far as clubs and stuff, I didn't really. When I was a teenager, I was at uni, and I wasn't really like, I'd go and see bands and stuff. But when I went to a club, it was just to get drunk, basically. It wasn't like, there wasn't many big raves. Like, they were happening, but it wasn't really my scene. Like I said, I was more into metal. Once I got a little bit older and kind of got a bit more into dance music, I would then start to be a bit more like, but again, like, I've got loads of pals that are in the psytrance community in Scotland, so I was into that for a while, and that was all just like illegal raves, which were great, and it was like in the woods, kind of near Scotland, near Edinburgh and stuff. So that side of things I did a bit more. But in terms of drum and bass, that's only been very, very recently. You know, I think it's always been there, but it's definitely been a bit more of a revival in the last few years. And there's a couple of regular nights that are putting, you know, like every Wednesday night there's a drum and bass night on in Edinburgh that's always rammed. And then at the weekend there's a few. So a couple of guys I know quite well. Another producer called Ominous, who's from Edinburgh. Like he puts on a night called Night Shift, and I played that for the first time. Like, I headlined that actually for the first time like last month. And you know, that was my first proper nightclub. Playing out. Oh, it was amazing. So good. It was
you've got a book now for DJing then, I guess, yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and it is awesome, and it's something I want to do more of, and it's something that doesn't really come naturally to me. Like I said, I was more in bands, and then I started producing, and then I only bought like my Pioneer like RX3, you know, at the start of this year. I could always do it a little bit because we used to put like raves on in our house and stuff like that, and like we'd be playing stuff, but it was on like a Tractor S4 controller, and sync was on all the time, and it was like I wasn't really like trying to do it properly. So at the start of this year, it was kind of, I need to do this in order for like my career to kind of develop a little bit as Beskar, because it's you know, it's hard to get your name out there just as a producer. You need to be DJing as well, and yeah, I'm glad I have, because I fucking loved it. It was great.
And it'd be good for your music as well, because you're going to get an idea of what works a little bit more when you actually play them as well. And it'll definitely give you some inspiration for writing music, because you'll know what tracks you want to make to fit in that set for that club, or for that track to mix with that, I suppose, as well. So do you find that you're getting a little bit more like inspiration for certain things and new styles for your music as well from it?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a little bit. I think it's still early days yet. I've only ever played live in a club once. I've played in like a couple of pubs like prior to that. there's a thing in Edinburgh called Sunday Service, where it's like the first Sunday of every month they have like just a pub that does like almost like an open mic for drum and bass DJs. So that was really good to like first like wet my whistle a little bit and kind of just try it out for a little bit before going to the actual club. But hopefully I'll be getting a bit more gigs here and there now. And then, yeah, I'm sure that will happen. I haven't found it happen just yet, but like I said, it's still early days.
Your dad planning to come and see any gigs, do you think?
Yeah, so he always came to see like gigs when I was in bands and stuff. And like I said, when I was playing that last night shift, he was like, he was like I said, he was 60 at the weekend there, and he's kind of like, you know, I'm on from 1 till 2, and he was just kind of like, nah, I don't know about that. I'm maybe a bit too old. But then after it, like the day after, he messaged me and was like, I just so regret not coming. The next time you do it, I'll be there.
Fair play to him. Does he does he used to go to any of the big raves and things, like we mentioned Resurrection and Fantasia? Did he do things like that?
Yeah. So Resurrection, he was at every Resurrection. He loved it.
So he's got plenty of stories then. If I mention obviously people like Scott Brown to him and things like that, he'll know those guys.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely his thing in the 90s. He was massively into it there, like Scott Brown, and yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't really know them that well, but that was his thing. Like he loved Resurrection. He was there all the time.
Yeah, it's no secret, especially on this show as well. I've probably talked about it on every episode, but I come from an hardcore background. So obviously Scott Brown was somebody who I knew very well. And one of my peers, I actually released some music on his label as well back in the day. So he's definitely like one of the biggest exports, I would say, to come out. And of course, the late, great Tom Wilson as well, big popular DJ in the Scottish scene as well. I believe he died, though, a few years ago, unfortunately. And you can't forget Calvin Harris as well. Obviously, there's probably no bigger name worldwide than Calvin Harris to come out.
No, I remember I saw Calvin Harris at Tea in the Park Festival when he was the front man of his band for the first album, and he was like on at like midday on the main stage. Like he was just like a nobody. I think he had like Born in the 80s was the only track that anybody knew, and it's crazy to think that how far he's come. Where he's from is a tiny little kind of area of Scotland as well, like down in the kind of borders, and that's where my dad's from. So, I don't know.